are just starting. Today, we will speak about the transition from management to leadership. And I would like, before showing you what is the difference between management and leadership, to have your opinion. What is the difference for you? And what is your definition actually of management and what is the definition of leadership? Because I hear a lot of confusion. I see it on social media and different way, and I would like to know what is your perspective. And you can either chat directly or speak. I think speaking is better because we have a better interaction and it's better. But if you don't feel confident to speak, you can always type in the chat. And I will call on Taha because I know that the microphone is working. What is your definition of project management and what is your definition of leadership? And after I will ask Duncan that just joined us.
Management is more dealing with the formal way of managing people. Uh, Leadership is little more. Uh, it could get a little more. You know, dealing with not exactly the very formal way of managing, but uh, based on the person's skills and leadership skills and perspective, they could manage in a little more different manner, in a little unconventional manner, or which might even give better results sometimes.
Okay, I see. And it's still confused in your mind, Taha, isn't it?
Yeah, a
This
little bit
distinction.
confused.
You don't have a clear line between what it is exactly one or the other. And I want to make sure of if I understood well on this. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I
Duncan.
wouldn't mind
Yeah.
getting a little more clarity on it.
Yeah, sure. Don't worry. It is the goal of this session, helping you to understand better what is the clarity, at least what I think, and after we can discuss my definition of the difference. Duncan, can you speak or you
Yeah, I'm here.
cannot?
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can. Perfect.
Nice to see you, Rainy.
Yeah, long time I didn't see you.
Exactly. So maybe this is incorrect, but I will try it the other way.
Yeah.
So I think of management more as a task-based activity where you're trying to achieve a specific outcome and you know exactly what you're looking for. I think that's most people manage. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think leadership is more around setting an outcome or a framework that you're hoping to achieve and empowering the people to work out how they get there and provide this support, but not necessarily the how. So one is kind of I'm an Uber driver,
Mhm.
yeah, and I'll get you from A to B. And the other is I'm someone that will give you the tools to allow you to work out how to get there, but it's really allowing that development path for you to work out how to drive there yourself and give you the tools, the car, the map to get there. So that's maybe the analog I would use to describe the difference between the two. Maybe that's very abstract, but
Yeah, no, I mean, you are closer to what is the definitions that I said. So with no further ado, I will tell you what is the definition. So management is more focused on the procedure, making sure that things are done and how they get done. When you are a project manager, program manager, portfolio manager, your role is to make sure that the project, program, and portfolio are done and that things are delivered on time. And it is your responsibility to be project, program manager. When you go to the leadership side, is more on having an inspiration, a vision that you want to be implemented, but you are not sure how to do this. And it's the solution to help make your dream a reality. And if there is anybody that have a little of a question or clarity in here, please interact because it is an open discussion webinar. So I like to have people challenging my opinion because I don't think I'm always right. but I try to help people to be more clear on the difference between management and leadership. And it joined a lot what Duncan was sharing. Tom, do you want to interact? Because I see that. No. Okay. So clearly, management is more on looking at what is happening, making sure that things are done, and it's more focused on the three direct KPIs that we use: the cost, the scope, and the timeline. When leadership is more a vision, and make sure that you empower your team to make it a reality. The next element is the problem of failing the transition. And perhaps you may have some ideas of what are the problems when you fail this transition. And most of the time, it's happened between when you are a project, program, portfolio manager, and you become director or vice president, and you start to have this need of being more a leader than a manager, when both roles can work together. And we will see later in this, it's important to have both. But what is happening when you fail this transition from management to leadership? And Pam or Anne-Laure, Chip, I see that you are already on mute. Anybody, please feel free to raise your voice. Otherwise, I will speak, but it's just pushing data and it's less interesting.
So I would say, I mean, you imply by what you've just said, Aurélien, that it's one or the other. I think the challenge is that actually it requires both, and you need to have mentally two hats. And you're like, okay, I'm sitting with the management hat on. Nope, now I'm sitting with the leadership hat on. And depending on who you're talking to, you may be trying to lead and provide leadership to the team leader, but his team underneath need managing, and you're trying to find that blend of both. So I think the challenge most people find is how to segment their lives and how to work out, you know, you virtually need a little sign like a churrascaria where it's a red and green is like, okay, this is a leadership moment, this is a management moment, and be clear in your mind when each one is happening, because they will need to be, they are skills that are needed to be deployed in parallel, is my view.
Yeah. And it is what I tell in, I think, 1 or 2 slides after, that both are needed. But don't worry, I understand this. And Chip, I see that you appear in my screen. Did you want to tell something? Okay. So one of the things is, yeah, please go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. No, I'm just listening to the inputs accordingly, and I think with your the last speaker, yeah, it's a parallel path, and I think it's the leader's responsibility to find and make sure the alignment's in both. So from a team perspective, should be clear on goals, objectives, role responsibilities with the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. Part of the leadership trait is to, in my preferred case, would be by example, but also ensure that it includes your team's, I'll say, personal and professional alignment with what they want to achieve with their career. Because if they're not bought in on both sides, it's a waste of time.
Sure, I understand this. Yeah. So I will show all the elements that I identified as when you have difficulties to really pass from one side to the other. And usually the one that we saw the most is a micromanagement. That means you start to have more a supervision vision. You work like a leader. You have to inspire people, but you have difficulties to really letting go this control of making sure that everything is set up correctly. Letting your team be responsible for the role that you give to them. It doesn't mean you should not help them, should not do some task when needed, but when you start to be a leader, you are less in the daily work of the doing and how it is done, but more on the why and making sure that you use the best skills and strengths of your team. And it is where most of the manager migrating to the leader that is not totally black and white, that is most of the time gray, but understanding really when you need to delegate, be more out of control and make people make their mistakes, because it is also one of the problems that we have in most of the organization. We want to control everything because we don't allow mistakes. And mistake help our team and employee to be better at what they are doing. If they don't do mistakes, they don't grow. And it's in the discomfort and all this area of trying and failing that they learn the most. So if we don't allow this environment of being able to fail, you fail your organization to succeed. You have an excessive focus on efficiency, skills, and creativity. So that means you don't allow people to do what can be the best solution. You dictate what you think is the best things. And it's kind of the micromanagement, and the engagement suffer because they see you as the only person that can provide the solution, and you don't empower them, so they don't think engage, and they don't see the value that they bring to the bigger picture, and they put themselves as just persons that help to accomplish the things, but they are not engaged in this. And if somebody has any example in this, I know for me that when I was working in several companies, I was in a project where I was working actually with Duncan at this time on a project that was on automating the different processes of my company. And it was something that should have bring a lot of value. But when I was speaking with my development team, they were not understanding what was the value that they were bringing to the company. They were just focusing on doing the job and delivering the things that were requested. So they were in mode, me being the manager, telling them what to do, and them delivering what is expected. That means we are perfect in cost, perfect in time, perfect in the scope. We did everything delivered on time and things like this. But at the end, my team were not motivated to go beyond what I was asking them or finding the best solution for something, because they were just following my instruction. And when I understood better later in my role that my role was not so much being a manager, but more a leader, I understood that I was in need to explain for both my team, but also my stakeholder, what was the benefit of my solution and why I was doing this. And it's created a little more engagement in both sides, and we were able to work better and have better communication, better engagement between both of them. Do you have any additional element on this slide before we are going to the next slide that I think, if I'm not wrong, is that we need both? Yeah, Duncan.
No one else is going to say anything. So I think that the challenge, as you said, is that by doing that, you assume that the manager knows the answer. And as a manager, by doing that, you constrain yourself, or you constrain the team's creativity or solutions to only doing what you want. So it's very task oriented. If we're at McDonald's flipping burgers, there probably is only one formula that you need to do, but it depends on the type of task. And knowing when and how to communicate. Look, if the oil rig is on fire and we're evacuating, it's not time for creativity. It's time to follow and follow the emergency procedures and get out as quickly as possible. If it is a task that is different, then you need to be able to create space. So I think the challenge for people is, and even managers, is to work out how to signal to their teams when is the right time and the wrong time in that space to get input, to do alternate things. And I think that's the challenge we all face, is that, you know,
Yeah.
do I do it? It's like your kids. Do I do it as simply as possible and just, hey, follow me and do what I say? Or do you want them to learn and develop? It may take a little more time initially, but it's probably beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And Manish, because you arrived late, do you have any input on this? On what is the problem of failing the transition from management to leadership?
No, I just joined, so I'll try to follow on further when you go ahead with the conversation. Yeah.
Okay, and Sheep, I think you unmute yourself at the moment. Did you have any input on this area, or it was just, oh, Taha, perhaps?
No, I'm listening. I mean,
Okay, perfect.
I
And
think
Taha?
I would say, Arlen, that part of a leader's role is to also, like I said, help from a team perspective, the individual achieve their, say, personal and professional goals. And so
Yes.
the common alignment between the manager and the leader and the employee and the person in charge, it takes teamwork, right? So the two can't operate independently, but certainly there's a pivot point along the way to achieve the role, responsibility, and task at hand. But the progression of the individual and the progression of the organization and the commitment for the business, and in some cases, the obligation to the customer, is where the leadership part needs to excel.
Yeah.
Because you want
But
the
you have to,
individual to perform when you're not looking. So inherently, your job is to also improve their own leadership skills, not just management skills. That would be the answer.
and it is a great insight also, Sheep, that you are raising here. And it was not in what I was telling, but now that you tell it, it's really something that resonates with me. The manager is really focused on what need to be delivered, and it is really on the solution, the product, the project, the portfolio, the program, I mean, whatever it is. But the leader is focused on the people, on how he will develop the people, how it will make sure that he inspires these people to make things happen, but he is not in the control of what will happen in this hat. Because as we told multiple times, and I will go to this slide because it is something, both management and leadership are essential. We need both because it's essential to have both element to make it happen. But if you don't have leadership, people are just doing something, and most of the time when they are not inspired, not engaged, and I published yesterday an article on Forbes related to this also, there is 95% of people that don't understand the strategy of their company. That means only 5%
Right.
of the people are going in the right direction, that
Right.
are understanding what need to be done.
Right. And Arlen, I would just add to your comment and just say, part of the leadership is accountability, right? So even at a management level, you have task A to be completed by 10 a.m. And so from a binary perspective, it's going to be a yes or no. From a leadership perspective, it's helping the employee understand what we're accountable to deliver for the obligation that we have internally, externally, or as a goal and objective for our team, and I'll say the accomplishments that we want to achieve in our careers or as part of our personal growth. So the two have to stay together, but one is a catalyst for the other, I would say.
I totally agree. And this is why you need to understand the distinction of both to make sure that you know when to change of hat. Because if
Correct.
you confuse both, you are always in this both role, and you jump always with the two mindset or the wrong mindset when you go to a specific situation. And it is why I wanted to do this webinar, because I wanted to make sure that we get clearer on what is management. And my definition may be not the right one, but at least we have something that we work to think differently. And in the future, when we will approach the different situations that we have in organization, we improve on making the distinction on what we want and what we don't want to happen in this specific situation. And management, at least for me, is more on the execution side. The leadership is more on the people side, making people inspire and making things happen thanks to people. Is there anything that anybody would want to add out of these 4 elements that were highlighted that I may have not covered? And there is one element that SHIP covers, that is people management, that is not in this slide. Is there anything else that you see that will be important? And when do you think both, I mean, do you think about one situation where both management and leadership need to be really together in one situation? Or should they always need to be separated? I mean, you jungle from one hat to the other, but do you see any situation where both need to be happening?
I'd like to expand a little bit on what Chip said on accountability. I think
Sure.
that leaders do point and empower their team members to be accountable. And especially what I mean by that is accountable for their own career aspirations. We can open up doors, but they have to know where they want to go and where we can guide them. They still have to be accountable for their own ambitions. In the same way as I can have an environment that is conducive to collaboration and happiness, but they have to own their own happiness and be accountable for those things. But as we work and we guide them on the balance between operations and strategic thinking, I think we're empowering them to be accountable for their own direction.
Sure. And I will want to go a little perhaps out of what I was planning for this scope of the presentation, but these things resonate with something that I see in a lot of my client, people that I interact with. Sometimes people are in a position that they like so far, but they are at a point where there is a decision to make between continuing in the direction that the company want for them, that could be growing in a technical area, or growing in something that perhaps inspire more for them, but perhaps the manager doesn't see this skill and they need to develop this specific skill, but the organization doesn't need this specific skill, and the person want to develop all the leadership, all the soft skill and things like this. And I think everybody should focus really on the soft skill and power skill, because we start to be a little replaced with our hard skill by the artificial intelligence. But what do you think a leader should do when the aspiration of the employee are not aligned with the organization vision? And it's open to the floor of everybody because it's a big question. I know.
Sorry, can you ask the question again? I missed the last half. What's the question?
Sure. Yeah. The question is, what will be the right way of behaving as a leader when you have somebody that have an inspiration? I mean, your employee has an inspiration that is not aligned with the organization vision for this person. So, for example, the organization seem growing more on the path of technical or doing this, but the employee want really to focus on more growing going up in the different level of the organization and being more a leader than really a technical, or opposite. He want to grow more in the technical, but people want to push him more on the leadership path. And how the leader should behave, because the interest of the organization is what the leader support because he is in the organization, but in the same time, the person want to go in another direction and it's maybe not aligned one with the other. So how a leader should behave in this area?
In my opinion, the leader helps the team member identify their skill sets. What are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and play to their strengths. If those strengths are going to take them in a direction that we don't have a particular opening or in the direction of the organization, I think we still help them and enable them to be successful, even if that means that they will leave the organization at some point. I think a measure of our success is how many people we grow up and out. That means sometimes out to internal promotions, and sometimes that means they're strong enough that they go and bring value in another company. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I like your answer, but I rarely seen this. I mean, in my different company, I saw that people were more pushed where the organization wanted, but it's a great insight. Manish, Taha?
Yes, I think in this case, I mean, for the best interest of the organization, you could try to find a kind of middle path where you can coach the employee to be a little more towards the organizational goals, because at the end of the day, that is something that everybody has to be aligned to. You know, the CEO's vision, and that comes down to everybody, and the organizational goals and things like that. But perhaps they could redesign his work to, or if the organization can support and benefit from work that is more towards his personal goals as well as the organizational goals, that could something of that sort could be done.
Yeah. I mute you, Manish, because I wanted Taha to finish his sentence. If you have anything, please unmute yourself. No. Yeah. Yeah. So Taha, I agree with you that you need also to do this alignment with the organization. But as a leader, I will think that you need to help grow the person in the best interest of the person. If this person has the skill, as Pam told, and the strengths that are going in a different direction than the organization, it's probably better to help him to go to another organization or to go in the right position and see if there is any openings that could happen for this person than frustrate the person in the wrong role and at the end making him grow in the wrong direction may break and disturb really the organization goal, because you are forcing somebody to go somewhere he will not be happy, and this frustration will reflect in the work. And I think as a leader, we need to be better at caring about our people and not caring about the work only. Because if you understand your team, you understand the strengths, and it is really a level that is upper than most organizations are going. I think going really to understand the strengths, understanding what you are doing, and not just I give you some tasks, you complete them, and I know that you are good at this. It's really understanding what are your real strengths, what I can develop that I don't even know from you that could be developed on. And now I will leave the floor to Manish that unmute himself.
So I think ultimately we are working towards a common goal, right? That what our function needs to deliver overall as a program, right? To our pillars, right? So in that case, even though somebody is really talented in my team, ultimately we have to align with what is expected out of us, right? So if we are spending our energy in something which is not aligned with where we need to go, ultimately all of our KPIs gonna hit, right? So I think that is where the leader comes into picture, where they are like, they assess the behavior and motivation level of the employees, right? And how we are able to communicate openly with the people who are intelligent, who are not intelligent, or whatever, right? They're part of a team. So in that case, we can foster that dialogue with them and tell that, okay, I think this is good. We are consistent, we are transparent between both of us, but ultimately, we need to use that person's energy in the right direction. That is very important, right? And what is right is by giving him that flexibility, that openness to really play with his strong or what his area, but slowly aligning that effort into the organization goals, right? So it only can happen when we build the trust in the team, when we build that openness, trust, transparency in the team, where they feel they feel that my leader is open enough, and I should be able to convey my thoughts and work together with him and support him, right? So yeah, that's my thought on this one.
Yeah. Anybody else before I share an example on?
Yeah,
this?
I'll just comment, Chip. I would say the split, and it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Maybe to a manager, oh, that's a surprise. But to a leader, it shouldn't be, because along the way of the engagement with your team, you should be aware of both scenarios. One, how we progressing to understand the goals, projections, strengths, weaknesses, strategic positioning, all those things that go into managing a team, for both ways. The other way is not just for the employee's perspective, but also from the organization's perspective. Because your question went down the path of the employees' next step or path differs from the current path of the organization. Okay, well, what happens when the organization now decides, from whatever reason, that it has an effect on the employee, right? So it goes both ways, but the leader should be engaged enough ahead of time to develop the capability of the employee so it's transferable, not just by current role responsibility or in job description, but in capability, because the capability is the thing that counts, right? So the capability is part of the distinction, I would call, between the development of a leader versus a manager. And so I would say it's a good question you ask, but
Yeah.
I would paraphrase it by saying, to a manager, that might be a surprise. And then what do I do? To a leader, it should be a natural progression of development of that person and that organization to go compete, et cetera, et cetera. So you should already have had an idea of where that was going and how to make that person capable that it can be transferred to other locations. Or unfortunately, if the employee decides to leave, good for them, but that was the point, right? As a leader, to make them progressively better than when they got there. And
Exactly.
fortunately,
So,
you want the alignment to stay within your company or your business, but sometimes it doesn't. That would be my comment.
yeah, and it is really planning as a leader the transition from where people are to plan really and being more strategic. And the leader is more on what I know today and what will be tomorrow. When the manager is more on the present, is what is happening today and what I need to do so the things are done correctly. The leader is in the planning, so he needs to understand what exists and he needs to understand the different skills of the team. And I remember when I was working in one of my projects, I had one person that was underperforming. If I look at the project that I was distributing is the different people, what I did is not telling, oh, this person is underperforming and I should give more to the overperforming person because he will go fast. All my project will be done very quickly. But I need to understand what is the strength of this person that I can use in a different way so he can perform to his best, and I can delegate what the skill that he don't have to the right people. And understanding really, like you tell, the capability and also the skills, strengths of your team is essential. Not all team members with the same job title will do the same job. As a manager, yes. As a leader, you understand how to balance the different need and the different skills of your team to make sure that you have the best of each person to accomplish the best output of your projects. Anything before I go to the next slide?
Can I be controversial?
Yeah.
So having worked for large organizations and small organizations, well, having worked for large organizations and then exited those, this conversation is currently framed where you're talking large organizations and lots of flexibility. So I think this conversation doesn't need to be underpinned for only relevant to big organizations. So that's just one thing. I challenge us all to think about, well, what happens if you work in a one-person business? You can still be a manager, a leader, or whatever. And then the other thing I would say is, to me, leadership goes beyond your current role, job, or organization, whereas management doesn't. So you can display and show and demonstrate leadership to people outside of your organization, whereas that's hard to do for management. So I spend a lot of my time today, I believe, working with people outside of my organization in more of a leadership role, even though it doesn't directly translate to my management role, because eventually what goes around comes around, and it's who I am. So I think it is useful to know that it ties into some of the things people have said, you know, helping someone move outside your organization to a different role, a different place, either a different department or a different company, it falls into the leadership thing. Whereas you can't do that as a manager. We understand that's not possible. Yeah. So I think it's just an interesting piece to think about. You know, you can display some of these traits and develop them independent of each other. But just my two controversial points.
Thank you very much, Lucan, for your input.
So I have to, sorry, why did you consider those controversial?
Some people wouldn't necessarily think that way. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So,
I don't know. Okay. Just asking.
And I guess it was also the other one I wrote down earlier, that the culture of the organization you work for, the culture of the organization you work for matters, whether that is acceptable or unacceptable. Yeah. So I think understanding the cultural norms of the organization and where and how people think changes whether that would be acceptable or not. I know some people that would have taken a swing at me if I facilitated someone's exit to another company where they were happier, more valued, and eventually we would probably do business on the other side. I mean, you know, eventually it comes around, but that's not how some people think. Well,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I saw that you were on mute, Tara, so I was waiting in case you wanted to tell. So I put some elements that I was seeing when to use leadership and when to use management. So when the organization is not, I mean, if you are weak leader and weak manager, the organization drift and it's very inefficient because you have neither a vision, neither a structure to make it happen. So as I tell, both of them are useful. When you need really leadership is when you are really on the vision, on pushing the things for more the future. And usually, if you have weak management, you have a great vision, but you have poor execution because You make a great vision, but either people don't understand what you are doing and the management make the completion of nothing, or the management itself is not working at all and you are not able to accomplish anything. In the opposite way, if you don't have leadership and you have a strong management, is very efficient, but you will not innovate and you will go always on repeating what you already have done, because the leadership is the inspiration, the things that push to the next level. And the best is having people that have strong management, and you don't need to be mandatorily strong manager and strong leader. You need both in the organization, except the one-man company that you were telling Duncan, where you may need a balance between leadership and management. But when your organization is big enough, you need to find the right people that have strong management and the right people that have the strong leadership and put them in the right role and balance the organization to strive. Anything on this slide, because we discussed a little in different way this already, so I just want to focus perhaps on something that is more. So becoming a better manager. So it's master the resource allocation, optimize time, budget, talent distribution, clarify the expectation, implement and monitoring the system, and develop problem-solving skills. What I see as a manager, the most challenging element is clarify expectation and make sure that you define correctly your stakeholder expectation. Your role as a manager is to make sure that things happen, but you need to be clear with what needs to happen. And this is why I tell clarify expectation. If there is anybody that thinks differently, please let me know, because it is my experience and I want to share that I was good at making a budget. I was good at making the scope, at least I thought, and I was good with my team making the delivery. But I have multiple times failed my project, even I was good at the 3 dimension of project management. Why? Because my scope was not aligned with the scope of my stakeholders. And having an increase of scope is not failing your project. It is, it is failing the project as a project manager as a definition, because we limit this into how we need to do it. But at the end, what you deliver, the product, will have a better value to the organization. And what stakeholder and management care the most is that your effort go in the direction of the organization. And if you are delivering something that is never used, you will be failing the organization. And you will have more bad feedback than good feedback. Yeah, Manish or Taha. I see both of you on mute. So.
No, I think in very short, right? So I think you have covered the important pointers here, what a manager should be really focusing on if he really needs to be a successful project manager within time, within budget, within the resources. But overall, I think what becomes important, which I also see or feel or practice in my day-to-day life, is about having the right tool in place, right? So we all of us, I think, as a project manager, use different kind of tools, and I don't want to get into that AI segment for now, because that is something which is not the question. The core question here is how we are going to be a better project manager. In that case, utilizing the effective tool, right, and then really putting KPIs and milestone for your project. So your third point, right, implementing monitoring system. So a lot of time we do take the status of a project, and then now we have all the new fundas of Agile and Scrum, right? Do we see any gaps there? Yes, the answer is yes, because we sometimes we really don't focus on the milestones where what we're planning to achieve over a course of time, right? So milestone will give you a clear picture about what we are expecting from your team. Are we on track, or really we are deviating from that? That is one. And then till the time you are not very clear on the milestone, you're not very clear on the overall project achievements with respect to from your developers or your development team, right? So I think that really hinders the project timeline and also delays the overall execution, which in turn hit your cost as well as the time, right? So yeah, I think what I follow is I really try to be specific. I define milestone for each of my resources, and I try to track based on milestone, as in, okay, I was expecting this project to be completed with these 4 modules, right? So that is milestone, these 4 modules. Are we on track on that? Or as a technical PM, I should be in that situation to go a little bit deep and understand on what I'm expecting, or that guy is very clear on that, right? With respect to expectation, or he's still unclear on the requirement, but he's trying to figure out, as I'm the project manager, he's not willing to come back to me every now and then, because that will make him give him that feeling of being incompetent, which is not the case. So that fear, that feeling comes in mind, and that eventually hits your overall project progress, right? So I think, yeah, I think that's my experience day to day at present. Yeah.
Thank you, Manish, for sharing this. And this is great elements that you share. And this is why I ask people to speak, because sharing this experience helps everybody. And you will learn that more you share, more you learn from yourself, because sharing this will help you to be even better in your different skills that you want to
Oh, absolutely.
develop.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And evolving in, yeah, Taha, you wanted to speak just in case?
Yeah, I feel like, each individual that is in your team has, on a case by case basis, each individual is different, and uh, some people need more management, some people need more leadership, and it just depends, and you have to study the individual on a case by case basis, and uh, apply what is needed for the success of the project, uh, accordingly. And of course, the more you get to know the people, you get to know what their needs are, what their wants are, and you can include some of that as well, so that they are happy doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and it is where the balance of between management, making things done, and developing your people and making them inspired by what you are doing it's essential to make sure that you develop the whole team in both areas, the management and making sure that you deliver on time, and the growth of your team and making sure that you make things happen as the strategy of the organization is developed.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah. Evolving into an effective leader. So usually, and as I told earlier, 95% of organization, 95% of employees don't understand the strategy of their organization. For me, when I read that perhaps 3 months ago, because I was doing some research, that mean 95% of your organization is going in different direction. That mean 95%, if it is equal, are going in all directions, so they null their effort. So that means only 5% of your organization is really working toward what you want. And just by making clear your vision, you can have an improvement of performance and efficiency that will be 95% higher. For me, it's something that is essential. How can we improve the vision and making it more compelling so we can stop wasting this 95%? It is communication and making clear what you really want. I had the case very recently to work with one of my clients they give me a very vanilla generic statement about what is their vision and mission. And it's good, you want to accomplish your business goal, but you don't inspire people to want to work for you or to really buy from you, because you just tell, I'm doing this, and nobody understands more than that. And having a compelling vision, I mean, I have one that I think is really big, is Elon Musk. He is very controversial in a lot of ways, but his vision to go to Mars is something that is compelling for a lot of people, because it's something that we don't know how to do. It's very ambitious, and people really relate to this big vision that is perhaps never will happen. We don't know, but people are working towards this and they are motivated. And you can see the work environment of SpaceX, that is the Elon Musk company, is not good. They are working hours, they are not treated very well. But his vision is so strong that it inspires people and people want to work there. So he is very good at management and he has a good vision. After, his leadership is perhaps not the best for the development of people. The second element, it's inspire through example. I work in a lot of company where people were telling something and they were doing something else. And as a leader, the biggest skill that you have is a trust. So if you tell something and you do the opposite, your trust is null. And if your trust is null, you don't have leadership anymore. So it's very important to stay behind your word and make sure that what you tell is aligned with what you do. And I hope I'm able to do this in the different organizations that I work with, because I try to really be always aligned. And I cut myself time to time to tell something and not do something that is aligned with my word. We are all human, but it is important to think about this and make sure that you align as much as you can between what you think is right and what you are doing. And develop others. That is the element that Chip, Duncan develop a lot and that I support and I endorse, is you need to delegate authority. Make sure that you trust the people that you work with. This creates a psychological safety and grow for everybody. And I will go to the last slide and allow anybody to ask questions or interact now. And I will close on this slide telling, for your leadership journey, the next step is assess your current balance. Identify your management and leadership strengths and understand how you are doing and what need more development or what need to be reduced, because it's not always good to have too much of leadership or too much of management. You need to adjust according to the situation. Seek honest feedback. I will ask all of you to ask 360, not just your manager, not just people that you like, even the people that you don't like or you are not in the best relationship, ask them for feedback. They will give you a different feedback than what you want to hear. And it is as important as the one that you want to hear. Find strategic mentor, people that inspire, that can help you. And the last one is create practice of opportunity. Test new capability and low risk situation and try to fail often. I heard in one podcast that they were measuring their rate of success, not by the number of projects that were successful, but they were looking at how many projects were failed. And if they didn't fail enough projects, they were encouraging people to fail more. Because this means that more they failed, more they were able to succeed in their different projects. And it is something that seems totally counterintuitive, but I experiment it in the real life, and I think that having more failure help you to be better at success. With this, I leave you with the 3 minutes of interaction if you have anything to add. Otherwise, we will close the session a little early.
This is Chip. This is good. So good discussion. Thanks for hosting. I would just say that maybe one thing to think about as you continue the journey with your team is what are the things that you're doing to enable them to lead one day, and then see where it goes. But I think the progression of things of the split of this discussion between management and leadership, I would say is more of a partnership that needs both to be successful, and they pivot accordingly based on circumstance. The other individual on this call that mentioned atmosphere, that is a big part of any of the success on either one of those two swim lanes. And so I think as a manager or leader, you should establish those. And whether it's one of transparency or trust or say-do ratio, expectations, accountability, whatever it is from an atmosphere, work-life balance, whatever it is, I think in both cases, you should clearly articulate what they are. Because if you don't have the belief in the person, all these things that we're talking about not gonna count. So that's my comment. And I think, Arlen, it was a good session, and thanks to the other folks that joined. It was very good. So thank you.
And if you have specific topics that you feel that could be interesting to discuss like this, please send me a chat in LinkedIn, or wherever you have my contact with, so I can improve my session and make it more interesting for everybody. And Duncan, you wanted to speak also, so I will.
I was just going to share a comment that was personal from me. Okay. So I think your third bullet there around finding strategic mentors. So I spent most of my life in one company and moved around the world with that one company. I found it difficult, and it's taken me 3+ years to realize quite how valuable establishing those strategic mentors independent of your career. So it was easy to have a proxy where those strategic mentors were basically the people around you in the organization you work for. But given that most of us have a 40-year career in total, that we're looking at, chances are you're not going to spend all of that in one place. So building your own network of strategic mentors independent of your job is probably the biggest gap that I've done. And it's taken me a long time to start to fill those in. So I would suggest that all of you do an inventory, if that's the right word, to try and make sure that I think there's strategic mentors that are independent of the current organization you work with, so that whatever you do over your career, you still have a network that will follow you and support you. So it requires active effort to do that. It's not a passive exercise, but it's actually find and maintain strategic mentors wherever you go in your career is probably a really important exercise that you need to do, and I probably didn't do early enough. So that's my one moment of wisdom, if it's worth it for anyone else.
Yeah, very good highlight. I really believe in this. I believe in mentors and coaching, as you may imagine.
Anyway, otherwise than that, thank you. Appreciate it, really. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Aurélien. Appreciate your invitation,
thank you.
and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.